Imagine waking up in a world where the concept of a mirror simply doesn't exist, not just as a manufactured item, but as a fundamental principle of light reflection. This isn't about broken glass or forgotten technology. It's about a reality where smooth, polished surfaces don't bounce light back in any coherent, image-forming way. Forget about seeing your face in a still pond, or the glossy finish of a car, or even the subtle sheen off a highly polished gem. These natural phenomena, which we take for granted as rudimentary forms of reflection, would either not occur or would be so diffused that no discernible image would form. How would humanity adapt to such a profound visual void? And what strange new methods would emerge for self-perception in a world devoid of direct self-observation? In the absence of visual reflection, the primary means of understanding one's own physical form would revert to an intensely tactile and proprioceptive experience. Imagine spending hours feeling the contours of your own face, meticulously mapping the bridge of your nose, the curve of your jawline, or the subtle asymmetry of your eyebrows. Blind individuals already possess an extraordinary capacity for this kind of self-perception, using touch to build a mental map of their features. We would develop an unparalleled sensitivity in our fingertips, capable of discerning minute details that are typically overlooked when we can simply glance into a mirror. This deep tactile engagement would create a much more intimate, internal understanding of our physical self, one that isn't mediated by an external image, but rather constructed from direct physical interaction. Without mirrors, our self-image would become a profoundly social construct, almost entirely dependent on how others describe or depict us. We would rely heavily on verbal descriptions from friends, family, and even strangers, piecing together a composite mental image from their observations. Imagine a community where artists become indispensable, not just for aesthetic pleasure, but for providing the only external representations of a person's appearance. Sculptors, painters, and even skilled sketch artists would hold immense social power, as they would be the gatekeepers to self-knowledge, translating tactile input and verbal descriptions into a tangible visual form. This could lead to fascinating social dynamics where physical appearance is a whispered secret, a collectively agreed-upon narrative rather than an immediately verifiable fact. Even without direct reflection, subtle, indirect visual cues might offer glimpses of one's own appearance. For instance, the way clothing drapes and fits, or how a hat sits on the head, could provide general information about body shape and head size. We might become incredibly adept at interpreting shadows cast by our own bodies, analyzing their contours to infer our profile or general silhouette. Consider the patterns created by light passing through hair, or the way skin reacts to sunlight. Subtle, almost imperceptible details that, over time, could contribute to a fragmented sense of self-visualization. These aren't reflections, but rather emergent visual phenomenon that, through careful observation and repeated exposure, could build a rudimentary internal model of one's outward form. Ultimately, in a world devoid of mirrors, the mind would become the ultimate canvas for self-representation. Through a combination of tactile input, verbal descriptions, indirect visual cues, and perhaps even artistic renditions, individuals would construct a complex and ever-evolving mental mirror. This internal image would be highly subjective, constantly refined, and potentially quite different from how others perceive them. Imagine the fascinating variations in self-perception, where each person carries a unique, imagined face, a composite of all the data points they've gathered. This internal cognitive reconstruction of self would be a testament to human adaptability, revealing how deeply our identity is intertwined with our perception of our physical form, even when that perception is entirely self-generated and not externally verified.